just kind of given up. Like, everybody had said, well, you're older now and you're just supposed to be fat and sick and hurt all the time. I was laying in the bed one day and I'm just like, no, just no. Like, this is not living. It's criminal because people are so desperate for help. And then the chemicals, don't get me started on chemicals. And the thing is, with the modern healthcare industry, they put people on medications for things and they leave them on it. And you're not supposed to, and they make the biggest part of their money a lot of times on these satellite drugs. Carnivore is such a huge life-changing event. 3 days, everything was gone. And I mean, everything was gone. 3 days improved. But not only that, the years, and I mean, after I had my kids at 34, I had horrible overall body pain, like nerve pain, muscle pain, joint pain, that was just so bad that the pain was gone.
You look at a box of cereal in the United States versus some other countries. What are some of the things, when you look at, I guess, from a chemical perspective, that are just crazy that we're considering them food or putting into our foods?
In particular, like if you look at some of the chemicals that we're exposed to.
Hello and welcome, Carrie here from Healing Humanity, the power of a proper human diet. And today I'm thankful, grateful, and blessed to have Liz on the channel. Welcome, Liz. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to hearing your story. I've been interviewing a lot of carnivores, and these individual inspiring stories are really pretty awesome. So I never get sick of hearing these. So I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about you. Maybe if we could you start out and just tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, what you do, that sort of thing?
Sure. Originally, I'm from the South, in case you can't tell. I was originally a medical technologist. I went to school for that, right out of like high school years, and worked in hospitals for about probably around 10 to 15 years, while at the same time I was trying to get a degree, and I got a degree in chemistry and I went into pharmaceutical industry. So it's kind of a mixed bag. Basically what I did is all of the diagnostic testing for health. So I worked in hospitals. I worked in microbiology, immunohematology, serology, urinalysis, hematology. So I was a generalist. So I worked in all parts of the laboratory. And that got me interested in being around all of the healthcare, got me interested in pharmaceuticals and pharmacology. So got into that. I've worked in pharmaceuticals and like I said, some of this overlapped. So I was doing both actual fields at the same time for about, 5 or 7 years. And then I went straight into pharmaceuticals for about, I think I've done that for about 20 years, but pharmaceuticals, medical devices, biomedical devices, nutraceuticals, the blood industry. So I've done all of the regulated things. Like, I did a lot of different things. And in doing that, I've seen a lot of that industry. It's like a monolith or a megalith. It's like one big, giant, complex. It's all together. So at first I thought, well, this is going to be a departure. If I leave healthcare, it's like a different thing. It's really kind of not. They're all kind of together. So that was very interesting. But my degrees are in medical technology, and I'm licensed with ASCP. And then I got my chemistry degree later, and then went into the pharmaceuticals and did some other things too with chemical engineering, but I just decided I didn't need to be a professional student anymore. So,
Right.
Because back in the day, we had to go to like the library and places to learn things. So a lot of times people would be professional students if they were very inquisitive, because that's the only place you could go to, you'd go to school to learn things. Now you can learn all kind of things. Information's everywhere. So, but back in the day, I just kept getting degrees. It was kind of crazy. So.
Nice. And what led you to a carnivore diet?
Well, it's kind of a journey. So like everybody says, back when I was a child, I was very skinny all the time. It didn't matter what I ate. I could eat anything, and I was super thin. When I got to be in I'd say around was in college. I was in college for so long. It was like late 20s. I was in college. I noticed I gained some weight, but not a tremendous amount because I was so skinny in the first place. So it wasn't that big a deal. But when I got, I'd say about in my 30s, some not even after I had kids. I didn't gain a lot of weight after having kids and when I was 33. But when I was later 30s, it started to catch up with me. And I was standard American diet. I ate garbage all the time. And I went kind of keto. It was like Atkins type of stuff I had been familiar with that. And I'd tried to weight lift in the past. Like I had really got into fitness and bodybuilding and things like at some point. It was probably when I was around 30. So I was familiar with just doing the whole protein kind of thing, but fat was demonized for most of my life. Like all I heard was, fat is bad, fat wicked, and all this kind of stuff. And I remember my brother was he was still alive then, and he was big into eating dry chicken breast. I mean, it was god awful, rice and dry chicken breast. It was like a fate worse than death. And I remember all of us eating that crap. And it was like, this can't be right. I mean, people would lose weight, but it was just horrible. So I knew about the whole protein thing. So when I needed to lose some weight, I had done keto on and off, but keto, and I'm not ragging on keto. I think keto is effective if it's clean. But keto turns into dirty keto like really fast because for whatever reason, and I've talked to so many people who went keto, when they start, they're like eating really clean, and then they see the muffins and the snacks and the bars and the stuff, and it's all junk. It is a scam, like where it says, oh, this has 17 grams of carbs, but it's really 2 net grams and all that kind of stuff. And they're subtracting fiber. I don't know who came up with that garbage, but they need to be given some kind of prize for advertising because wow, whoever came up with that is just like, I don't know, an advertising genius because
Right.
so many people buy into it and it's not really true.
That
So,
always upsets me too. Just as a quick side note, when you go
mhm,
to Costco or Sam's Club, I walk around and I see these low carb bread, and there's
mhm,
people that are trying so hard and they're doing so
mhm,
good, and then they're misled and they do. And I did the same thing myself. And you put like a glucose monitor on, or you track yourself, you eat one of those things, and numbers just go crazy.
yep,
And they're full of like keto was so beautiful and works so well if you were strict at it because it was kind of natural. But then you look at these
mhm,
products that are keto and they're the furthest
yep.
thing from natural. It's so disappointing that people are misled that way. But
Yeah, and it's criminal because people are so desperate for help, and then they think, well, I get to have my cake and eat it too. And the thing is like if it looks too good to be true, it in most cases it probably is. So and then the chemicals, don't get me started on the chemicals. But so I was keto and fell into the dirty keto thing and almond flour, which if you have inflammation, it's like, oh God, you start eating almond flour, it's just gonna make it worse. But I had been keto and I did lose. Now I ran like miles and miles and miles a day to do this, but keto, when I was doing cleaner keto, I lost 70 pounds because at some point I gained, I think, a total of 80 something. It's hard, I don't remember exactly, but I do know in the first shot I lost 70 pounds on keto. And I had just kind of given up. Like everybody had said, well, you're older now and you're just supposed to be fat and sick and, you hurt all the time and all this kind of stuff. And I kind of bought into that. And I was trying, my kids were younger and I'm trying to raise kids. Everything's stressful. And, you know, I just felt like, well, this is the way life is. But I was laying in the bed one day and I'm just like, this is before I went keto. And I'm just like, no, just no, like this is not living kind of thing. I don't know what it was or why I had that epiphany, but I started doing the keto thing. I limited the carbs, did it clean, lost the 70 pounds. After I had done that, about a year and a half, like then I started falling off the wagon. And it's like, well, keto muffins and all this kind of stuff. And I gained about 30 pounds back. So and then I was like, "Oh god," I started to have a really big problem. So I gained 30 pounds back and I said, "I gotta go back keto again. I gotta do it clean." And around that time, I had lost some of the weight again, but, uh, I was still eating. It wasn't good. And it was still keto, but it wasn't deep into it I had lost 5 pounds, but it was 2022 around Christmas time. I was eating stuff at Christmas, like it was sausage balls, but they had flour in it. And it was like, I was trying to get meat options or keto options at, the parties. And it was better than like eating a big piece of chocolate cake. But, I kind of was telling myself, oh, this is better than, you talk that little voice inside of your head that talks you into stuff like that. It was
Right.
like, it was really loud. So I was listening to it. And so I was not really doing strict keto. And I woke up, and this was around, it wasn't actually Christmas. It was around the holidays. So on Thanksgiving, I woke up on Thanksgiving Day. I was cooking for people, and I woke up with the worst pain. It's like where your pelvic bones stick out in the front, particularly on the right side. And it felt like it was the bone that hurt, but I was literally like in horrible pain, like to the verge of tears. And I had other conditions too. I had been diagnosed in the past with fibromyalgia. I had been on a drug called tramadol for like 10 years um, to manage pain from that and other joint pains and things like that. But again, it's like, well, you're just, getting older, blah, blah, blah. But this pain was so bad, it sent me to the ER on Thanksgiving. And my sister came over and she took me, and because it was radiating and I did not know, well, what is this? Like, how could this be that bone? It was just very strange. So I went there, spent all day there, American healthcare system, go figure. So we're waited all day, all Thanksgiving was ruined. I was there till late in the night. They did CT scans and everything. And then little Doogie Howser came to me and was like, well, maybe it's a nerve. I'm like, here's your $5,000. Thank you so much.
Right.
So it's
Jeez.
like, and I think it was $5,000. So it's like, and I mean, I have
Wow.
insurance, but it was like, great. So I got so pissed off. I mean, livid, pissed off. And I've stayed that way since. I got so angry. And I had long suspected, as a chemist, I have looked at the crap they put in the food. And I have always wondered, what, how can this be okay? And, as time goes by and actually all of the ingredients start to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And I know kind of the background of how they actually approve this stuff. And I was like, I don't know. I've got to know why. Nobody can tell me why. No one can tell me why. Why are we falling apart? And I'm 57. So it's like, the body is not supposed to just dissolve at this age. So I got really angry and I started looking into it, started doing more research. And I didn't really know about carnivore too much. I think I'd heard of it. And this was in 2022 at Thanksgiving of 2022. So I started looking into it and I started to listen to Sean Baker and I started to listen to Chafee. And I'm like, wow, oh my God, I was right. All those years ago, like 30 years ago, when I'm looking at the back of a label and going, what in the hell? Like, why would we be eating this? This is not normal. Um, it's like, it just, all of a sudden, everything was just, it was perfect clarity. And then I started to look into and I'm on a Chafee camp. Like, I do believe plants are trying to kill you. I know there's a lot of people who get upset with that, but I think that it's just some things are better than others. It doesn't, I mean, it's just a risk-based type of thing, like whatever you want to eat or what kind of risk you want to assume, because some things are a lot worse than others. But I think overall plants, do have the toxins that are supposed to protect them. So uh, I went off, okay, I went off of the nothing but meat, water, and salt at first, because I had read about Michaela Peterson's account of what she actually got through. And that's just amazing. I mean, that just makes you go, wow, when you actually read what she went through and the stuff she was going through. 3 days, 3 days, everything was gone. And I mean, everything was gone. 3 days improved. The pain was gone. And later already had an orthopedic appointment for that pain that was going from my hip. It's kind of like going from my hip down. And they said that was an IT band. Which I always joke, it sounded funny because I was like, wait a minute, there's nothing wrong with my internet. It's like, what are you talking about? What is an IT band? And he said it's like a tendon or something that goes from your pelvic bone down to your knee. But that was gone. And he doesn't know. He just looked at me. He did a hip x-ray and said, there's nothing wrong with there's no arthritis really in your hip, or there's nothing wrong with your hip. Cause I was worried like hip problems, you hear about people getting older. Everything was gone. But not only that, the years, and I mean, after I had my kids at 30, I guess it's like 34, I had horrible overall body pain, like nerve pain, muscle pain, joint pain that was just so bad. They put me on that medicine, tramadol. And the thing is with the modern healthcare industry, they put people on medications for things and they leave them on it. And you're not supposed to, if you read the insert, you're not supposed to take certain things, but a certain amount of time. But they had put me on that for like, it had to be like years and years and years. And
quick interruption. Did you know we have an incredible membership site for you called healinghumanity.life? We have a special offer going on right now. Learn more at the link in the description. We have courses. We have expert Q&As with the good doctors. We even have a Healing Humanity Heroes Zoom call once a week, highlighting real heroes that will inspire you on a path to healing. The community is wonderful. We're going to be implementing a buddy system so you can be held accountable, recipes, all sorts of great stuff to help you on a path to healing. Learn more at the link in the description below.
It was the only thing that worked because I had no quality of life because I hurt so bad, and it was just this mysterious thing, and I wasn't even overweight when this started. So it fixed that. I stopped taking all my medication. I also had developed a horrifying esophageal reflux type of thing going on. And they had put me on a PPI, a proton pump inhibitor. It was a pantoprazole sodium, I think. And that's also something that I know at least 4 people that are on that perpetually. They've been on it for like 8 years to stop their indigestion. And the indigestion was so bad, it was like I felt like I was having a heart attack. I mean, because it radiates. And so that was also kind of new. That had developed in like within the past year. All of it was just gone. I mean, completely gone. Everything was gone. I mean, I really felt like I was living in a dream, because when I would get up in the morning and the weight started to drop off. The weight dropped off really quickly. I would get up in the morning and I was just like, I feel better than I did when I was 20. So it's a really surreal experience, like going carnivore. It was amazing. So, I mean, I can't say enough about it.
That's incredible. It's really awesome too that you this went off in your head due to your background. Like, what are we eating in this food, where it kind of rung true to you, and then you started doing it. What you were talking about with the plants are trying to kill you too. I'm on the same page. When you start looking at that more, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was Dr. Chafee talks about plants are trying to kill you because they have defense mechanisms, which all make sense, and they evolve, and the defense mechanisms evolve over time and adapt and things like that. But the thing that worries me now, I've started going down this rabbit hole more recently, is not just the defense mechanisms in the plants, but the pesticides and glyphosate. And glyphosate's everywhere now. And I was just watching this doctor. His name's Dr. Bush. He was saying something like 70% of rainwater tested has glyphosate in it. It's in the air, it's in the water, it's everywhere. It's on all of these plants that we're eating, most of them. Even if you buy organic kale, 60% of organic kale tested has glyphosate on it. And I never realized this until recently, but glyphosate is an antibiotic. Like, people watching this, you can just Google it. It's an actual antibiotic. So it's like, what are we doing to our guts if we're consuming low levels of antibiotics for years and years, decades and decades, and all of our guts are destroyed? I almost wonder on carnivore. I know, like, you're having so much success. I am, because we're in ketosis. We don't have inflammation. We're not eating that junk, but I almost wonder how much of it is our gut bacteria, gut biome, which is a kind of a touchy area with some people. It's kind of an unexplored area, I think. But
I think, another thing that is funny is that I worked for a nutraceutical company. And what's interesting is that nutraceuticals, about 2009, and I don't know, it's around that time, they were under the food regs, or it was right before that. They were under food regulations, and food regulations are a really big joke, like from somebody who's done regulatory type of things for pharmaceuticals and med devices and things like that. Like the food regs are kind of funny. Like they try to keep things clean. I mean, there are regulations for making food, but it's really kind of sus. What they did is, now that everybody was making vitamins and nutraceuticals, and it was just kind of the Wild West because they were under food regs. But they're not food. It's a different kind of thing. I mean, it's made out of food, but so they put in new regulations. It was the CFR, I think, Part 111, which looked like drug regs, and everybody in the nutraceutical industry kind of freaked out. So I went to work for a nutraceutical company because they didn't know how to adapt to the new regulations, and they needed help from somebody in the drug industry. So when I got into that field, well, first of all, I'm horrified at, like, oh God, this is food. Like, cause they had food regs set up, and I didn't, that's one area I've not worked in. So I didn't work directly in a food, type environment, but they were under the same regulations. So I got to see what it looked like. And one of the things that was amazing to me is basically when you talk about organic stuff, you look at something and it's organic. We had a team of like 12 lawyers that sat in a room and did nothing but vet label claim. So if you claim something's organic, if you actually look what that means, it's kind of like, I don't know, I can't think of a good analogy, but it's kind of like the whole antibiotic thing, antibiotic free. It's like, well, it's antibiotic free. We can say that, but that means that, well, they were only on it if they're, and I don't know exactly the limits on this, but just as an example, it's like, well, if you only give them antibiotics until this point and then you cut it off, then you can claim it's antibiotic free.
Right.
In my world, that's called a lie.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you know what I mean? It's just called a lie. But like here, it's like we claim this and we define it. So we're going to make this claim and we're going to put a definition on it. This means this. And it's like, but the label claim thing was crazy. I mean, because there was a lot of problems in that industry with people making claims on labels of things that couldn't do, which, I mean, I get that part. But the organic thing it's kind of, and I think overall it's better than other things, but it's not what people think it is. They think it's safe. It absolutely is not,
Right. Yeah. The automatic labeling of organic, people are like, well, I'm eating organic, it's fine. Most people don't realize this. I didn't either until a while ago. If it says organic, that doesn't mean pesticide free either.
Mm-mm.
Everyone thinks that I talk to. It just means that the pesticides they use aren't synthetic, but they're still, I always tell people that in the word side, homicide, suicide, herbicide, pesticide, it means death. It's still there to kill. It's just a little bit of a different form of it. And then a lot of them that are organic and don't have synthetic pesticides on it, a lot of them still do anyways, because it's oversprayed from a field right next to it. So you're still sort of consuming those things. But when you started having this healing, Liz, you sounded like you're pretty excited and happy, obviously, like you're finding this incredible healing, but were you also a little bit mad too? Like you suffered for so many years and it was this easy, like you found healing so quickly?
Oh, I was angry, and I'm still angry about it because I watch people suffer every day. And, I know that's one of the reasons, like, I started a YouTube channel, is because I was so mad, and I kept at work. Like, all I do is run my mouth like 24/7. People will be in there and they have all these problems. And I'm like, what'll fix that? And they're tired of hearing from me. So I had to have an outlet, and one of the things I do want to interject something here, go back to what we were saying about Carnivore is such a huge life-changing event to me and I'm just now figuring this out. Like, I had other issues that Carnivore fixed, but I didn't even notice it until recently. Like, now that I'm like talking long form about it, like when I spoke to Dave before, this didn't even occur to me. But I had back in this is years ago, I was attacked. It was pretty bad, and someone came to my defense, but the person was I don't have any memories from that. I was dosed with, I think they think it's GHB. And I have no memories of a certain thing that happened to me, but I have a lot of post-traumatic disorder. And around the same time this attack happened, it was like a bad person, and it was a rough time that I went through. But around that time, it was within like 6 months, I was also in a horrifying motorcycle accident. So it's a lot of trauma that went on. And I flew off a person, it was an old lady that pulled out in front of us, and we were going about 45 miles an hour. And I flew off of the motorcycle through the back windshield and landed in her lap. I mean, that kind of trauma. It's not like, ooh, I skidded and I got a little bit of road rash. I came to, I was out for a few seconds. I came to and looked at her and I said, "Are you okay?" It's just funny, the kind of your reaction to trauma. And I crawled out the way I came in, like, and I'm sitting on the back of the trunk. So I didn't have a scratch on me, which was weird and freaky. Basically, and my husband was in the wreck too, and he ended up having a cut on his face. So it was very weird. And he dented his body dented in the top of the car. But the whole thing was so, like, we didn't get injured, but it was like, the whole thing was so traumatizing, because when something like that happens to you, you're going to end up with PTSD. And then the attack that had happened, that, I've lost memory and all of this weird stuff was happening to me. I had really significant post-traumatic stress disorder. Like, when I would drive, I can't be a passenger. Like, I cannot be a passenger. If I'm a passenger, I'm like this, and I'm pumping the imaginary brakes, and I'm a nervous wreck. No matter how good the other person drives, I'm a nervous wreck, because I expect at any given moment someone to pull out and hit us. And it's been like that for years. Now, if I'm driving, I don't have too many of those. I don't have that reaction as much. I still am very, very jumpy. But one thing I noticed, like, recently, is that I was riding with my daughter, and and this was just the other day. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm riding in a car with her, and I haven't jumped once. And I'm like, oh my God, and I even forgot about it. I mean, that's crazy. It has, and I 100%. That's definitely from my diet, because that was something that was there all the time. And the only thing I changed was my diet. And now it seems to be gone. I still have a little bit of jumpiness here and there, but it's like, that's something I just thought I was going to live with forever. It's just crazy. I mean, so even things that you don't even think of until later. And I've known people who had, like, knee injuries, who went on carnivore, and like, they're used to limping because they have knee, pain in certain areas of the body, or like in a knee particular. And then one day they'll just realize, I'm not limping anymore.
Right.
I'm walking normally, and they're just shocked. So this PTSD thing was something that, and another thing that was really odd, and I thought about this when it happened, is that my boss got really emotional one day. She was going through a lot of stuff, and this is not typically like her, but she got really angry, and she comes into my office, and she's like screaming at me. She's just she's venting at the first person. I mean, it wasn't direct. I mean, I totally forgave her, and she said that, she's really sorry later. But if it would have been me 2 years ago, I would have flipped out. I would have broken down crying. I would have been so upset. I literally just looked at her like I had no reaction whatsoever. She was taken aback, like, because she was like, oh my, like, it actually shocked her, my reaction. I just didn't. I mean, I'm just like a robot or something. It was kind of weird. But that also happened. That is only after I went carnivore. So my reactions to stress and bad things that happen are just, yeah, it's kind of crazy. But
That's
it is,
amazing.
yeah.
I'm so happy to hear that. I've talked to so many individuals. It's the reason I'm doing the documentary is mental health, depression, anxiety, PTSD. Uh, it's a huge issue now, and I've talked to so many people. And you're absolutely right. We get these things that sort of become our new normal because we suffer with them for so many years or decades. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
the brain fog was the big one. Did you have any issues with brain fog? I hear that from so many people that, like, yeah, I knew I had brain fog, but then when I got out of the fog, didn't realize
Yeah.
how the extent of it until I actually got out of it, sort of thing.
Oh, wow. Now that's a big one too. Like, there's so many things it's hard to even remember. So I'm a fiction author. I wrote like 3 fiction and fantasy books back in, like, I think 2008, that I had those published. And since then I've had 2 sequels that I'm working on, and it's kind of like, I'll, I'll go back to it, and I've got them half written, and I'm like, I don't feel like dealing with you today. And I just can't creatively, I'm not having a lot of inspiration or haven't had a lot of inspiration. Recently, though, ever since I went carnivore, I mean, my ketones are through the roof. My ketones stay about 5, like all the time. So, and I study it because, as a scientist, it's like I want to know what I don't go nuts on the labs. Like a lot of people are looking at their cholesterol and all this kind of stuff, and it's like, no, I am interested in ketone values because I will notice sometimes that I'm just like, my senses are super heightened. Like I feel like Superman or something. And so I would check my ketones, and I mean, just like intense, being able to like focus forever on stuff. And I would check my ketones and they're like 5 and a little over. And I'm like, wow. And I noticed the difference when they're higher versus when they're lower. And I know a lot of people like, well, if it's between 1 and 5, you're that means you're burning fat and fat adapted and all that kind of stuff. But I do notice a difference when they're higher than usual. But so I'm really well fat adapted and stuff. And ever since then, my focus is incredible. And I have so many ideas. I'm going to have to get something to record them on, like for dictation or something like that, because I have this notebook and I can't even read my handwriting because I have to write so fast. The ideas come in so quickly, that it's just nuts. And like I've been tracking closely my ketones and stuff, because ketones, when you're burning ketones, that is giving you that intense focus. And it's just it's been incredible recently.
I love how you said it. I said it earlier too. You feel superhuman, and it's when you're in that deep ketosis. I said the same thing too. I try, like, I'm not trying to overhype carnivore, but my senses all seem so heightened too. I remember that for a long time. Everything, sense of smell, vision, hearing. I'm like everything. I attribute it like maybe because the brain fog's gone, but when you're in ketosis, it's like everything just works so much more efficiently. Um,
It does.
what
And I think it's your brain's preferred fuel as well. Like I just really do. I mean, everything seems to work better.
Yeah. That was one of my big carnivore epiphanies I had recently. Like, we're doing this whole documentary for people like yourself that just had this amazing healing for many different major reasons. Like depression's a big one, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver. People are overcoming all of these things. But then when I think about just the general public, or my former self, your former self, when you have that brain fog and you're not in ketosis, it's almost like you're a little drunk or impaired. Like I was walking around in a stupor. I'd just come home and I'd plop down on the couch. And so it's like what you're feeling now, this energy, you want to get the book going again. You have all these ideas. Everyone I talk to, they feel the same way on carnivore. It's kind of amazing, but also sad at the same time. It's like, I think all of humanity would naturally be that way if we weren't just kind of poisoning ourselves with this. It's such a shame. Such a shame that most humans are going to go their entire lives never feeling the way you or I feel.
I know it's and I thought was very interesting is I watched your when you interviewed Ken Berry, and he was talking about that. I think it was him that said that he looked back in the history, and because I'm big in the history, like what happened before, why we do the things we do, where things come from, because I think that people just lose track of that. And he was saying that every generation, like carnivore pops up and then disappears again or whatever, or is kind of lost. Which is interesting to me. Yeah, and I know like it wasn't him that said that. I believe that was who was saying that. But that's very interesting, because if you look back in I think it was the 1800s, it might have been earlier, that they used to use keto to treat uh, epilepsy.
Epilepsy?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
used to treat they used to treat a lot of things with keto.
Yeah.
And the doctors act like you're freaking crazy or something if you
Yeah.
bring it up, it's kind of like, and there's facts. There are things that are actual factual stuff that we know. Like if you look at agriculture and how the land is being over utilized, and it's got problems. Like if you want iodine, like you need to take I take a nascent iodine supplement, because I know that if the food and the grass and the land is like, not treated properly, it's not going to have the things that you would normally get out of it. Because like if cows are eating grass, I mean, it just depends on, or everything's over, with the industrial agriculture, it's like everything is over, I forgot what you call it. it depleted, like it's depleted of a lot of things. And so when I had thyroid problems, and this was before I had lost the weight, or right when I was starting to do keto. And I had told my doctor, she goes, well, you're, TSH, blah, 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 blah. And I said, yeah, I know about the lab tests and stuff. I said, but I think I'm going to take an iodine supplementation because I believe I'm iodine deficient, and also bromine toxic, because basically you've got several halogens. If your body doesn't have the proper, every cell in your body uses iodine. If it doesn't have that, it's going to grab one of those other halogens. And like flour is super brominated, and bromine is not what your body needs to run on, but it sees it, and, it looks similar. And so it'll grab that. It's like running on crappy gas. So I had stopped eating stuff like that. And it was at the beginning, and I wanted to have, I wanted to have the iodine. She looked at me like I was talking about chugging gasoline. And I'm like, I said, your every cell in your body has to have iodine. And she goes, well, that's dangerous.
Ugh.
I'm like, what are you, an idiot? I mean, I couldn't stand this woman. She like threatened me to not have I don't even know what I was doing seeing her, but it's like people who think that you can be allergic to iodine. That's not humanly possible. It's like being allergic to water. You can't do that. It's like, but there's been so many myths perpetuated. Like, that's basically, if there was a protein, like say shellfish, I think this is the case. I looked it up a long time ago, but like, there's a particular protein people can be allergic to, and it has a molecule of iodine bound into it. And so they just say, it kind of got mixed up with that, I believe, if you look at some of the common stuff. But healthcare has been an issue. Like if you're carnivore, you can't go to a doctor.
Right.
I mean, you don't need to, which is great. I mean, most people, it's like, I don't need to go anymore. And people are like, oh, you got to go to the doctor. It's like, no, why would I go to the doctor? And my kids are brainwashed to believe they need to go every 6 months or something. They were in public school system, which I would never do to anybody, but if I had to do over again. But like, they're like, well, we need to go to the doctor. I'm like, why? Are you sick? And it's like, why would you want to go to a doctor? Like, you know what I mean? They think they're trained you got to go to them and they have to tell you what to do, kind of thing. So I don't know. I'm probably getting off topic, but that just occurred to me that, if you look at like, the things that we need to do, the factual things that we need, the stuff we know, like we know that the agricultural industry is stripping the land of all the nutrients. We know things, and then yet we pretend like everything's okay, or we pretend like all of this garbage that's in our food, and it's not even food. The stuff they're putting in the food is not food. You're looking at all these chemicals, and look at how they actually get approval for that. And it's not like people look at controlled randomized clinical trials as being a gold standard for drugs. Yeah, they don't have that for food. That's not a thing for food. Like for food additives, that's not how that works at all. And I think a lot of people might think it does, and even if you look at the randomized controlled clinical trials, how's that working for Ozempic, the GLP-1 stuff? I mean, they didn't, the public is the guinea pig. So I'm super angry. I'm getting angry when I'm talking about it. So,
Right.
you know what I mean? If I talk about it, I get super mad, so I go on a soapbox like at work, and everybody's like, oh God, would you please shut up? Make her stop, because they want to eat they want to eat their Twinkies. So, but
right. Guilt-free.
Yeah.
In terms of the Twinkies and the chemicals and what we're seeing in our food, some of it's becoming more public lately. Like RFK has been talking about it. You look at a box of cereal in the United States versus the some other countries. What are some of the things when you look at, I guess, from a chemical perspective, that are just crazy that we're considering them food or putting into our foods?
It's in particular, the dyes are one of the most egregious things, and then you have things like, and again, like when I'm just looking at it, I'm familiar enough with it to know, and I want to do a deep dive on all of the individual type of chemicals, and actually which would make for boring reading, but categorize the different classes of things that they're putting into food, and actually spend a lot of time deep diving into that. In particular, like if you look at some of the chemicals that we're exposed to, and it's not necessarily, and I think there is, like soy, for instance. Oh my God, soy is so nasty. It is just so nasty. So in particular, like soy, it has the effect of acting like the female hormones, right? So, I mean, that is definitely going to cause you hormonal problems. And I think there's been enough studies to actually show that. So soy products being in there, it's not really what you like. The dyes are awful. I mean, they're just not something we should put in our mouth. So any of the dyes are just terrible, but soy in particular is something that makes raises my hackles, because I'm like, God, a lot of other things like the seed oils. I mean, this is like industrial lubricant. These things are not meant, if you see a toddler putting, I don't know, some cat poo in its mouth, you don't let him do it. I mean, you stop him. So it's like, I'm just like, oh, you're not supposed to eat this stuff. So a lot of it, there's a lot of different things. And it seems like if you look at America and the way that they put things in food, they just ran amok. They do whatever they want, so
Yeah.
you actually have where when they file the paperwork or whatever, and they submit, oh, hey, we're going to put this thing in a food and it's okay. We know it's good. It's like, really? And if you look at how that stuff gets approved, and everything's so corrupted, especially in the higher levels or higher echelon of FDA. I mean, you've got people on boards who, approve things based on like interest groups and lobbyists. And then you've got, because all of the people who, if you're in the FDA, you leave, you get a job in pharma, or vice versa. So all of these people have a conflict of interest. And so there's a lot of that going on. So anytime like stuff, we should be looking at anything we want to put into food, because I mean, if you're going to have preservatives that you have to use to make things shelf stable, okay, but you need to know exactly what it is, and it needs to be allowed to a certain degree, because we're hurting people by making the Fruit Loops colorful.
Right.
That's crazy. That is so dumb. And it just, that statement alone, you're harming people to make something colorful so that you can actually market it to little kids. I
Yeah.
mean, I can't even, that statement right there should tell you how horrifying the state of our country is when it comes to health. And people just look at you like you're nuts when you say stuff.
Right. I'm so with you on that last statement. That I'm so passionate and fired up about this. Like, but for me, I'm like, I'm an adult, whatever. I figured it out, so I'm good now. But then you look at our kids and this next generation and marketing this pure garbage. It's insane. The soy thing you mentioned is so interesting to me. I'm glad you brought that up. I have been so strict on carnivore. Like, I've never cheated. The only cheat I've had, this is way out there, was I was at a conference and my daughter's like, Dad, your breath is horrible. She gave me a piece of sugar-free gum, 0 carb. It was like the only non-carnivore thing I had.
Mm-hmm.
And from one stupid piece of gum, like, people are going to say, look at this lightweight or whatever, but I don't know. Our body changes. I don't know what it is, but I had that piece of gum and my mood was just like for the first time. And I looked at the ingredients in it and it had soy in it. And like one little piece of gum, that's going to do it. It's probably an extreme example. I'm probably weird because for 600 days, I've literally eaten only meat, but that was crazy to me. And then you look and soy is in a lot of things. That's what is so funny to me when people are like, foolish people still make the argument like a calorie is just a calorie. So if I eat 1,000 calories of ribeye or Oreos, I'm like, Oreos have soy in them. Like, that's going to affect your hormones. How can that be the same as eating ribeyes? It's just some of the stuff is crazy.
And I did it. Well, that's one of the things as a scientist in me is that bothered me is the whole thing that and of course I can't remember his names, but the guy who came up with the 1 calorie, the bomb calorimeter, I did a video on it recently where it's like, look at how stupid this is. So, and I'm not saying that they were stupid back when they did this in the whenever it was, 1800 something, when they were messing with these bomb calorimeters, which is the thing they actually figure out how many calories are in food, and they're still used today, where 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories, 1 gram of carbohydrate equals this, like it's a thing, like it's a one thing, and the idea that calories are, because if you're looking at the law of thermodynamics, and I did the analogy that if you have a bag of garbage and a match, you can burn the bag of garbage, right? So it's going to express so much heat, right?
Right.
we're not bomb calorimeters. It's like, but he actually, that is chanted today. If you talk to anybody, well, calories, a gram of fat, blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh my God, do you have any idea how sophisticated the human body is, and how many different pieces come together to make, to burn food for fuel? Like, that has absolutely nothing to do with burning some crap in a little vessel. It's like thermodynamics and physics is just like in the material world is the same as actually nutrition. That is the dumbest thing. And I have heard Dr. Chafee say that before about, we're not bomb calorimeters. Like, why do we still base everything on this faulty foundation? I mean, it's just crazy to me. So it's funny that you brought that up, because that's another
Yeah.
thing that drives me crazy.
Drives me nuts. I get the comment so many times from people. Doesn't matter that you did carnivore, you were just calorie restricted and that's why you lost the weight. I'm like, really? I'm not eating these food dyes. I'm not eating this garbage. I'm getting fatty meat, which seemed to when I started getting like the fatty meat, I swear my testosterone went up, my hormones balanced, my sleep improved. Like I was missing that. The calorie argument is so like childish. I get it all the time from people.
Yeah.
But one question I had for you was, so you have a very similar story to me. I did keto on and off. I had some success. I lost a bunch of weight and then I gained it back. I feel like I'm more successful on carnivore because on keto, I was kind of trying to moderate my addiction to carbohydrates. Do you feel that way too? Like you're doing better on carnivore because we were addicted to carbs and sugar before?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I think one of the things, if you're going to fix your, metabolic issues, and you're going to fix your problems, the first thing you have to do, or nothing will work, is you have to admit that you're an addict. Because we are sugar addicts and carbohydrate addicts, most people in the country, as much as any other meth addict, or in fact, I think it's the worst. It's the hardest to beat because it's legal. It's like everybody does it and it's accepted socially. um I had to come to terms with the fact, because I was kind of going to war with food. Like, before I actually realized all of this, it's like food was, I looked at it as some kind of enemy that I longed for. I had to have it. And I mean, I had horrible cravings. And once you get past the addiction, like once you break the addiction and you withdraw from it, like say a week or however long, you realize that if you don't touch it, you don't have a problem anymore. You know what I mean? But it's like alcoholics can't go drink again, because if they drink again, it's going to start all over again. So I'm always going to be a sugar if I ever got into it. But I think that once you do carnivore, though, once you do get past the sugar withdrawals and you get over that and you realize you don't crave anything anymore. I mean, you might crave like meat, like if you're hungry, but people don't know what that means either. And then because I keep hearing, one of the funniest things I hear is like, oh, I couldn't do that because when my sugar falls, I got to eat something because I get all lightheaded and I'm going to pass out. And I'm like, no, you're sick. You're a sugar addict. You're addicted to sugar. And so if that is not what's going on. They always say that, especially Southern women. They're like, my sugar's going to get low and I'm going to pass out. It's like, no, it's not. Like, seriously, like, are you a human being that's like, and these are healthy people. It's like, so you're a healthy human being and you're saying if you don't eat crap and sugar and candy bars, like your sugar's going to get low and you're going to pass out. But I hear that all the time. Again, that's like somebody telling themselves something so that they can keep eating junk, But once you get past it, the thing is the cravings go away. If you stop eating carbs, you won't crave them anymore, And I think socially you can get pushed into things, but people don't understand what hunger is in this country, and I'm not talking about people who are starving to death, obviously, that are legitimately hungry and starving to death. I'm talking about the average person who's smothered in food and has food at their fingertips everywhere they go. They don't know what that means, because when you crave something, you're not hungry. That's not what that is. It's that addictive reaction to food. Like you're craving something, you're jonesing for another hit. So you're not hungry though, because my kids walk in and oh my God, they're constantly arguing about, I'm gonna go to McDonald's, I want KFC, blah blah blah, and I can't get them on this lifestyle. I wish I could, but so far I'm still badgering them. But they'll talk about, I'm so hungry. I'm like, you wouldn't know hunger if it smacked you upside the head. You don't even know what you're talking about. You're just craving because you ate a pile of, I don't know, gravy and potatoes and French fries and stuff like that. And now you're wanting another hit because, you know, your glucose is going nuts and your insulin spiking. But that's the thing, is just what you have to admit you're an addict to processed food, sugars, whatever it is your thing was. Mine used to be cream horns. That shouldn't exist in the world. It's that abhorrent. but I don't know if you know what it is. It's like a flaky pastry with a bunch of Crisco and sugar on the inside. It's disgusting.
Oh no.
Yeah. Oh my God. So I was addicted to that years ago, but it's like, you know, I don't crave those things anymore. So you know, once you beat the addiction, but you have to admit you have a problem first. And that's the biggest thing. If I have piece of advice to go to any carnivore or people thinking about it, you have to admit that you have a problem. Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to fix it.
Yeah. I think that's like the greatest advice ever. Seriously, because I yo-yo dieted so long, and it was for that reason. I never admitted I was addicted. I didn't even know. I'm like, this is just food. Like everyone's doing it. So I'm gonna moderate. And every diet that I ever did was always so forced, and it never felt sustainable like this, because I was always, I'm gonna go back to moderation kind of thing. It's almost like we're living in a mass psychosis where everyone's got this addiction. No one's willing to admit it. We're the weird ones, odd ones out. But if you really take an objective look at it, it's exactly like you described. You're jonesing just like a drug addict for more sugar and more of that. It's the hardest thing to overcome too, because everyone's doing it. Grandma's giving cookies to kids. Every single celebration is food, food, food. So it's hard to overcome. But I always encourage people, like Liz, like you just said, once you get over that sugar addiction, it's gone forever. It's so liberating to be free of that if you just if you stay away from it. So you got to admit it's an addiction. That's great advice. The other advice I give people too is, if you're gonna do carnivore, really do it. Dedicate yourself to do it, because some people are like, I did carnivore 90% and they still have a little artificial sweetener or Diet Coke or this or that. I'm like, at least for 30 days, go real strict, real hard. Otherwise, you're just going to be suffering. It's going to be harder than it has to be. And you're not going to get to that point where you overcome that.
And one thing I will say that I do, because you know, I don't want to lose my card or anything, is that I still drink coffee. You know, and I hear Dr. Chafee going, stop eating, drinking coffee. You know, as I hear him, it's like a little angel, devil on my shoulder or something telling me not to do that. But I drink coffee and I drink very, very, very dilute tea. And the thing is about the tea, like I want to get away from the oxalates, but I did start doing that because I did oxalate dump a couple of times. I'm almost positive that's what that is. It is not pleasant, but it's something your body's, you know, getting rid of that or whatever. So, okay, you know, here and there I'll have like very diluted tea. It's to the point where it's not really that much, but then I drink the coffee. And one of the things I will tell you that's very interesting, because I'm like a big lab experiment. I do experiments on myself. So I had drank coffee with heavy cream, because heavy cream is carnivore. You know what I mean? It's not got a lot of carbs in it or whatever. It's technically, you know, from an animal kind of thing. But I didn't have any inflammation from drinking heavy cream, but I was trying to get rid of like another, I don't know, 15 pounds or 14 pounds or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know why I just can't get rid of that last little bit. And it's not even that I need to. I'm like normal BMI and all that kind of stuff, but I just want to be thinner like I was before. And I was like, I hear a lot about heavy cream stalling people. I stopped heavy cream and that's it in the coffee. And I started putting butter in my coffee. So I put, calorie wise, it's more probably calories with the butter. I lost 13 or so pounds in like 2 weeks. I think my face is melting off my skull. I lost it so fast. It's kind of ridiculous. It's like I got Ozempic face or something. But I mean, it was so fast, and I'm like, wow, who would have known that was doing that? Because I mean, that is the craziest thing. So I will say that if anybody is having trouble with, you know, with losing like last bit of weight or, you know, that kind of thing, man, if you get rid of the heavy cream, it might help. Like if you're drinking heavy cream or eating a lot of heavy cream. Now I'll eat a little bit of it, that kind of thing. But I do the tea and the coffee. But I feel like I never imagined I'd be able to, because my coffee had to be the right color, which sounds dumb, but I'd have to look at it and it'd have to be like the right color to drink it. And so I'm like, oh, maybe I can do the butter. So I went to do the butter and I did it for a few days and I was able to get rid of the heavy cream. You know, I felt like I was addicted to the casomorphins in the heavy cream, because that's, you know, one of the parts of it that actually makes you want more. Because I would crave it. I would be like, And I'm like, oh, hell no, we ain't doing this again. I'm not going to be addicted to anything. So I got rid of it and I was able to do it. And I feel like gradually, like, don't beat yourself up if you still drink coffee or whatever, and you want to try to get rid of it. I mean, some people drink coffee and they don't have a problem with it, but if you want to try to get rid of it eventually, I think your body tells you at some point, it's like, no more. You know what I mean? Like it kind of does it for you automatically if you stick to, this diet. And one of the, and I mentioned this before, I'm like, was talking to Dave, is like one of the freakiest things, just as it's kind of looping back around to things that got fixed. I used to never want to go to sleep. And that's bad because everybody needs the right amount of sleep. That's very important for your health. And I never wanted to go to sleep. And a lot of times I'd toss and I'd turn and I had all kinds of sleeping issues. And my body powers down at like 10:15 every night, like a robot transmission from Mars or something. It literally, I'm just like, boo. And I will go down in this seat or I can go to bed. My body's like, okay, you can sleep here or you can sleep in the bed, but you better make your mind up because you're going down. And I sleep like the dead. That also started probably a week after I started Carnivore.
Yeah.
I can push through it. Okay. If I start binging Netflix or something till 4 o'clock in the morning, that's not a good idea. But even if I say I stay up really late, the next day, I don't feel like I would normally feel before Carnivore. So it's just kind of crazy. That's another, I see. And I can't even remember all the good things about Carnivore. Like I can't even remember all, there's so many things,
Right.
But
Sleep was a big one for me too. Almost right away. And that's so life-changing too. There's so many downstream effects when you start improving your sleep.
yeah. Didn't you wear you wore a CPAP? Didn't you?
Yeah. I
Oh,
stopped
wow.
snoring almost right away on Carnivore, and I was mad about I was happy and mad at the same time because they all told me like you got to lose 80 pounds before you're just fat, man. You got to lose that fat and then you'll stop snoring. But it was just inflammation for me. Dr. Jordan Peterson told Joe Rogan he stopped snoring the first week on Carnivore, and I've since heard a lot of other people. It's just inflammation.
And I hear people at work talking about wearing those machines, and I get so mad, and they won't believe me. They don't believe if you don't get a pill for it or that you can't argue with the establishment. Like, no, they tell me what to do. It's like, oh my God, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Quick interruption. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in learning more about our documentary, Healing Humanity, The Power of a Proper Human Diet, or supporting it, please visit donate.healinghumanity.movie. Our goal is to reach millions of people that are hopeless right now and sharing the examples of real people over the course of 1 year that are undertaking a proper human diet to overcome obesity, type 2 diabetes, depression, anxiety, fertility issues. We couldn't do it without you. We thank you so much. We are also selling these shirts, Healing Humanity, The Power of a Proper Human Diet. Every penny we get from those goes towards the documentary. And last, we have memberships. If you click the little join button, it's best to do it on desktop. Under any one of my YouTube videos, you can join and become a member. We have hundreds of members right now. We do members only videos. We do members only behind the scenes. You can email me as a member and I'll answer you. And every penny from that goes to support the documentary. And the last thing is we have these Redmond's portable salt shakers. These things are awesome. You can get the best salt. You can take it with you. We sell these on the website along with our water bottles and cutting boards, and every penny from all of those goes 100% towards supporting the documentary. You can also sign up for our newsletter, which is completely free. All of these links are in the description below. Thank you so much for your support. Now back to today's video.
I was just go back to Dr. Chafee. He's talked about this, all the species of animals on this planet. He's like, so I guess humans are just so special that we got to have this apparatus that I strap to my face to breathe at night. I got to take all these pills. I got all this sickness and illness, but every other species on the planet eating its proper diet is just thriving. It's just humans. Just a coincidence, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What are your thoughts, Liz? So your background in pharmaceuticals and chemicals and science, are you, I always show people this. I'm on none of these anymore. You're off all of your medications. Are you anti-chemicals, anti, I guess, synthetic, or do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm anti all of that, because it's just like I said, I mean, there are things you shouldn't put in your mouth, and that's what we're putting in our mouth, and it's making everybody sick. The pharmaceutical industry, the food industry, and big agriculture are a conglomerate that is killing all of us. And I can't I'm not gonna like, I don't mince words. It just is. And the thing is, people are like, well, and like I always say, it's not a bunch of guys sitting in a circle with their Dobermans going, whoa, it's like they're not planning worldwide destruction. It's not that. Do they know what they're doing? Do they know? Are they aware of what they're doing? Are they aware of how sick this is making people? Of course they are, because they wouldn't be where they are if they were that unaware of what they're doing. So it's just, and I'm very happy about the whole RFK thing. Callie and Casey Means bringing this up, because it's time, for this to be made a big deal. You know what I mean? Because the people that are being hurt the most, if you look at a tier like economic structure, if you look at people who are more well off, you'll see they typically eat healthier. Like they typically stay away from fast food and stuff, but poor people don't have any choices. They're just left to suffer because they can't afford, if you look at if you're poor, you can't afford to buy, better meats and vegetables and things like that. And so it's just criminal what's being done. But yeah, I don't and I don't go to the doctor anymore. I can order my own labs if I need to. So and then I'm constantly checking my ketones, because I don't know, that's a thing. But I mean, I have been lately. I won't do it forever, but I'm checking. What I notice is when my ketones are high, my glucose is super low. It's just a neat relationship, and I'm a nerd, so it's like, I like journaling and observing different effects and different ways I feel and how alert I am and how many ideas I come up with, and kind of looking at those measurements to tell, what's going on chemically in my blood to see, what the deal is. And I noticed that, I mean, superhuman, like when I have really high ketones, like I feel totally superhuman, which is good. But I think that we should not, that's not food. That stuff that's in the middle of the grocery store isn't food. Heck, some of the stuff, and then, I mean, we have enough to worry about. Like I told, I was talking to Dave, and I said, there is a scientist, I still didn't get his name. He's easy enough to find though, who did a TED talk or something like that. And he's talking about not wanting anybody to eat meat. And he thinks that they should engineer the meat to be basically have allergens in it, or have some kind of do something to it. I don't know if he's, I think he was talking about breeding the cows or doing something genetically. I don't know. And I don't know if he could do it so that people would have a reaction to meat and they would eat less meat. That's scary, because I think about stuff like that. And I think about, if you look at some of the meat, and I will say this is an odd thing, but when I eat ribeyes most of the time. And sometimes I eat, I'll get the big, the whole tenderloin, and I'll chop it up and I'll eat tenderloin some of the times, but most of the time it's steak. A lot of times it's ground beef, but it's really fatty ground beef. But, that's kind of scary because, like, as carnivores, and I think about, I used to have like staple food in case of emergency. Like I've got bags of beans and things so we don't starve to death. But oh my God, I think I'll fall over. If I ever, let's say there's a hurricane comes through and you can't get any meat or something like that and your refrigeration goes bad, it's like, I mean, can you imagine going back to carbohydrates to survive? I mean, I probably would fall over, and I'm like, oh my God, what are we going to do? We need like jerky or something. We need to salt cure a bunch of meat for emergency or something, but
yeah, I have nightmares. I have nightmares about that. That would be such a shame if they did anything like that. That was one of my other big realizations. It's like, I'm not just succeeding so much on carnivore because I'm eating meat. It's because I'm returning to what is closest to natural for humans, given all the options. I think meat is the cleanest food we can eat, especially beef with a animal that has a ruminant digestive system. I think it's the cleanest we can possibly eat. On your earlier point with there's not some evil dude or boardroom of people doing it, I totally agree with you. But people should be more mad about this, even if it's a large, it's every financial incentive is to get us hooked and addicted and stay sick, and it makes them more and more money. The fact that people's wallets are getting thicker and thicker and thicker as you're getting sicker and sicker and sicker should just infuriate everyone. And our kids, they're getting our kids sicker so that their wallets get bigger. Like I'm all for business and commerce and things like that, but it's it's like every optimization, every single incentive is to make more money. We end up where we're at right now, where
Mhm.
people are just getting sicker and sicker from the foods we're eating and then the medication on top of it. It's just kind of
Mhm.
crazy. People should be more upset about it, I think. But it is really, when I first started doing this, I'm like, I never would have believed like RFK, Casey Callie means the Senate hearings. I would have thought it'd been like 30 years or something before we'd hear people
Mhm.
talking about it at that level. So it is reassuring from that perspective.
And people have to get really sick, I think. The thing is like you got to remember that we've got so many basically junkies, like people who will not. They love their food, and the thing that's the reason you see people with a lot of people with autoimmune conditions, or they're very sick and they have no other. It's like, I'm out of options. I've got to fix this. And they're at that point where the suffering and the pain is so bad, they have to give up their favorite thing, which is food addiction.
Yeah.
And so they have to let go. But the people who don't have to let go, I tell my daughter, she's very thin. She's a beautiful girl, but she's very thin, and she always has been. She eat anything she wants, just like when I was younger. And I'm like, that's almost worse, because if you were overweight, you might actually try to go on something like this because you would want to get rid of the weight. But like, and she's young, so she doesn't feel, which she does have some issues with sometimes. Like, I've noticed that she would get through emotionally. She would sometimes go through, and she's not clinically depressed, but like, I think mood swings that are more pronounced because of the food she eats, because she's a big time like pasta addict, and like all teenagers or whatever. So I think that's almost a detriment. Like, if you don't have a physical obvious sign of like this food is harming you, you know what I mean? Or you have some kind of issue, it's like you just go for years because the food's doing the damage, even if you don't
Right.
feel it on the outside. So that's the thing. It's really criminal to see all of this going on, because they know it. They absolutely know it. This is not something they don't know. And the
Yeah.
thing is, with like clinical trials and things like that, when you get to like Ozempic, should never be sold for weight loss. Like, first of all, because and Ben Bickman was even talking about and confirming that, like, once you stop taking Ozempic, I mean, do people really think they're going to take that for their entire life? And then when they stop taking it, they immediately gain the weight back, like gangbusters. It's like
Yeah.
crazy. And it's one of those things where, if you just continually to medicate, like, because medications in general, like, I don't remember ever making a medication, because I work for companies that made clinical trial materials. I don't remember making any medication in my entire career that fixed anything.
Hmm.
The only thing I made, everything that we made, whether it's fen-phens, statins, SSRIs, which are the devil. Don't even get me started on that. But it's like all of that medication never solved a problem. It's kind of like, hey, you feel bad? Look over here. Look at this. Look at this shiny new
Yeah.
thing. You know what I mean? It's like it almost, it might make you not realize some of the things that are going on, or you start to have other problems, but it never fixed anything. It would mask symptoms. But meanwhile, the rot is growing, and the problem is festering, getting worse and worse and worse underneath. It's just layered with a lot of chemicals. So,
Right.
and the reactions of the chemicals. So it's just, I don't know. This is crazy.
Most of these were SSRIs, and you're absolutely right. All
Mhm.
of these that weren't SSRIs, by the way, none of them ever fixed the issue. None of them ever
Mhm.
did. And but it's like you get hopeless and you go to
Mhm.
your doctor that you trust, and there's some hope there. Maybe this will work for
Yeah.
me. Maybe this is the answer, sort of thing. The Ozempic is just crazy too. Some of the stuff is so simple in retrospect, but obviously I couldn't figure it out for a long time before. But
No.
even with Ozempic, it's like you're not treating the root cause of the issue. The root cause is you're
Mhm.
eating the wrong foods that are making you overweight.
Mhm.
You're eating foods that aren't nutritionally valuable to you, and this is going to allow you to do that on a smaller scale. So you're still not eating
Mhm.
the right foods, but you're eating less of it. Complete
Mhm.
escape from what's natural. And like you said, you're done taking it and you gain all the weight back, but God knows what else is happening to them. I've been hearing a lot of reports with just depression, anxiety, because so much of that is rooted in our gut. And we
Mhm.
have no idea. Well, it's like you said, we're the human science experiment guinea pigs. Like, let's just
Yeah.
throw this on the people and see what happens, sort of thing.
And they did put me on Paxil, because this is back when I was in the midst of all of that. They put me on Paxil after the attack and the motorcycle accident. And I say it's the devil because like it zoned me out so bad. My son was in a baby seat. He was in the back seat. I drove through a red light. Didn't even know I was doing it. I mean, and I think it was the 1960s, they came up with the serotonin theory, basically saying, oh, brain chemicals are off, blah, blah, blah. And that's why, okay, I'm going to ask how they figured that one out, or how they allegedly figured it out. But so they came up with that theory, and then they started running with it in the 90s with it. I mean, think about the name of this: selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. You are messing with the body's brain chemicals, and anytime you alter a pathway, whether it's a proton pump inhibitor for the acid reflux, anytime you're stopping the body from doing what it's supposed to do, what on earth do you think you're going to get for it? And then like the parent or the pair that goes with that, they're like SSRIs and like Xanax, or something like that, or Klonopin or something. It's like you've got these pairs of things that people are taking. That tells you right there, I mean, what these things do. It's like you're not fixing whatever the problem is. And they don't even, I think that recent research that's come out is like, well, we didn't really have any, proof that's what was going on. We just kind of took a stab at it, and they kind of threw it out there. They're doing the same thing with Ozempic for weight loss, because very small doses of the GLP-1 stuff, I mean, when you're messing with that, or the Ozempic type drug, like very small doses of that going back to curing diabetes, or not curing, but like addressing diabetic concerns, is a very different thing from the higher doses that they're doing for weight loss. It's this is, and I think they factored in, like I always say, they factored in their class action lawsuits early, so the amount of money they're making, they don't care. And anybody that thinks that these corporations care about you, or that there's this thing to do good for humanity. There might be scientists who are, but these corporations are there to make money. And one of the things I thought was the most egregious from the pharmaceutical industry is that, and I wasn't part of deciding what drugs to launch and that kind of thing. I'm not on that sector of it, but I did become familiar enough with some of the goings on. They would launch a drug, they pick a drug when they decide what drug to make. There's no humanitarian type thing going on, or they don't care about that. They'll look a lot of times at not the drugs that they want to make, but the satellite drugs they'll have to prescribe because of the actual side effects from the drug that they're going to give you. So if they make the biggest part of their money a lot of times on these satellite drugs, because like, let's say drug A causes diarrhea, depression, and something else, like they come up with those 3 drugs, because if you'll notice, there's a reason people are on 15. You have a vat of pills in your little bin. That is not by accident. So that goes back to satellite drugs. It's like, because you when you make a drug, it's like, okay, what does it cause? It causes this, this, and this. So we'll have to prescribe this, this, and this. So when they look at how much they're going to make, it's like a package deal. And that to me just makes me, it's just really angry. And to the point to where the reason I'm in medical devices today is because I couldn't do that anymore. I can't live with myself. I could not live with myself. When I found out what they were doing, and you look at some of these clinical trials and people are getting hurt, people think, oh, it's clinical trials. Oh, it means it's safe and everybody was happy and everybody did well. It's like, no, there is a string of bodies in some cases. So I can't do that. So I had to leave and go into because medical devices usually are things that help people typically, they're things that help make people better, but pharmaceuticals are the exact opposite.
Yeah, that's so true. All the medication I was on, it just started cascading. And when you get depression, they put you on antidepressants, then you end up eating more. So then you get bigger, which is happening to most of humanity now. And then you get bigger. Oh, now you can take one of the Ozempic or something like that. It just cascades one on top of each other. It's so simple now. I can see it so much more clearly now. It's just humans trying to outsmart Mother Nature over and over and over again. And it never works, but we continue to try to do it over and over and over again. And the reason I was so sick for so long is just escaping from what is natural for humans, mainly through medication and foods we weren't supposed to eat. So This has been awesome, Liz. Thank you so much. I can't believe we've been talking over an hour now. Where can people learn more about what you're doing and follow you?
Well, I started just recently the Carnivore Science channel on YouTube. So because I keep driving people crazy at work and at home, so I have to, just as a venting kind of mechanism type of thing. And I try to do I do videos informationally, high level science. I'm not going to Thomas DeLauer people to death where, I'm going to go for 40 minutes on the structure of the ATP pathways and things like that. Like I'm not into that level of, I have to do a lot of training at work and things like that. So I get enough of that, like the detailed deep stuff, but just general things. Like one of the videos I did was a bomb calorimeter, like what that is and how we're not bomb calorimeters and why that's so dumb. Like just common sense type approaches to the scientific approach of nutrition, So hopefully anybody that wants to know stuff like that, and then other, carnivore related topics. So that's where I'm at.
That's really cool. I will have a link in the description below for Liz's YouTube channel. Thank you so much for doing this, Liz. I really appreciate it. Your story is really inspiring. I think we're gonna get a lot of good comments. You're gonna inspire a lot of people. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
You too.